thing. We started working with some of our colleagues in Alaska, and I've had long-standing relationships with some of those folks in Alaska. And at that time, the Polar Initiative, as it was called then, was something relatively new, and it was just getting up and going. And Mike Sfraga is a person that's now the director of what is now the Polar Institute there at the Wilson Center. And in those early days, we were talking about, well, we should find a way to collaborate and find a better way to collaborate. And it was some of those early discussions that helped kind of propel Arctic 360 into becoming a thing. And I would say that there's been one person that's been, that's been there consistently and has really helped define and help create what the mandate is around Arctic 360 and how we can best work together as partners, as North American Arctic partners, and that's Mead Treadwell. And I've known Mead maybe, I don't know, we probably go back about 15 years, and so I have a lot of respect for Mead. If those of you who don't know him, he was a former lieutenant governor of Alaska from 2010 to 2014. He was also, for quite some time, he was the chair of the U.S. Arctic Research Commission under George Bush and Barack Obama. And in those positions, he helped and implement the U.S. Arctic policy that was adopted in 2009. He's also expanded Asian observer participation in the Arctic Council and funded and advanced the 8-nation Arctic Marine Shipping Assessment. Now he chairs the satellite firm Iridium's Polar Advisory Board. He's also one of the co-chairs for the Woodrow Wilson's Polar Institute in D.C. And he's also a chair of the Arctic Circle's Mission Council on Arctic Shipping and Ports. He's also a member of the International Advisory Board of the UK Polar-based Polar Research and Policy Initiative. He was a former president of PT Capital, which is a private equity investor in Alaska, Canada, and Greenland. He's the vice chair, which is actually one of our sponsors, of the Alaska A-to-A Railway, and he's CEO of Keelak LNG. Mead has received his BA from Yale and his MBA from Harvard Business School, and I just want to say what's really great about Mead is he really kind of comes from both the public sector, I would say, in politics, but also the private sector, and he really was always trying to think outside the box, and is very passionate about the North, and is a very good spokesperson for it. So I'll just let him come up and introduce some of our two fireside chatters.
Thank you. Well, good evening. The halftime report from the Super Bowl, it's 10-10, so you haven't missed a thing.
Thank you.
And if you were worried about the Six Nations rugby, France demolished England today. So, I guess Wales moved forward and Ireland moved forward. We'll see what happens there. Jessica, thank you, and it's fun, Yvonne, to see you again. I do remember when you were introduced here 2 years ago, and it was actually quite a long story of how to be a holdout from a rural part of the world to get to the right place in the organization and to make sure that your district, which has proportionally less people than many other districts, gets its say and gets its view. And I took Bill Graham's description of your work back home, and we try that in Alaska fairly often. And it may be one reason why you often see Lisa Murkowski as kind of a swing vote on certain issues. I'll just pass that on. And Vitas, it's wonderful to see you again, Mr. Minister. I will tell you that we met at a dinner at the Prime Minister's house in Greenland a few years ago, and our company, PT Capital, did some work with Greenland to look at cash flows. And I've crossed the Atlantic today, and about 85% of our pennies from heaven that they dropped for air rights fell on Iceland, but we flew over Greenland but dropped no money at all, I don't think. And you know, there's a lot of things that can happen in the Arctic if we can develop streams of revenue. And I think you're dedicated to that, seeing that, and we're dedicated at the Wilson Center to helping amplify Greenland's needs. We did not suggest to the president that he buy Greenland, but I think Russell was in a conference in Juneau, and Vitas was in a conference in Juneau with all the sovereign wealth funds of the world or a big collection of sovereign wealth funds of the world, and I pulled together a dinner with Vitas and the State Department, and I said, well, we're here to talk about if we're not buying Greenland, how do we help Greenland? And there is lots to be done, and it's a pleasure to see you again. The Wilson Center initiative is co-chaired by myself and Alice Rogoff. And Alice is a big fan of our speaker today in the fireside chat, and I'm a big fan of the speaker in the fireside chat. And the two of us were on a panel in Iceland a few months ago, and I have to say that our speaker gave one of the clearest descriptions of how to start moving infrastructure money into the Arctic and how what the Arctic needs relates to how the world finance system is changing. So I'm looking forward to hearing his remarks tonight. I also just want to say it's been a pleasure at dinner to sit with one of the students here who's from Pond Inlet, whose family's from Pond Inlet, who's sponsored by Bridging Finance. Bridging Finance is a company that's been supporting us at the Alberta to Alaska Railway, and I know that David Sharp wanted to be here. I think Jake Stockstatter will be here tomorrow, so we're looking forward to hearing that from that company. At any rate, let me introduce our two speakers tonight. Russell Reed is Group Managing Partner for the Sea Change Group of investment funds, companies, and advisors dedicated to materially transforming the production, distribution, and consumption of natural resources around the globe. And it's one thing the Arctic has is natural resources. He also serves as a senior advisor to MSCI with respect to crafting solutions for the global asset owner community. And prior to Sea Change, he was Chief Investment Officer of the Alaska Permanent Fund Corporation, which is now about $65 billion. He was he was a Chief Investment Officer of the Gulf Investment Corporation. How big is that fund, Russell?
It's $30 billion of new money going into the economists and the GCC.
All right, $30 billion there. And before that, he was CIO of the California Public Employees Retirement System, or CalPERS. And how big is CalPERS now? Is that about 500 billion? Or?
400.
400 billion. So here's a guy who's actually managed a huge amount of money and helped channel a lot of money into projects and good things around the world. And you know, one thing for people here who look at finance, just to remember, all of the funds that I just mentioned, they're not for money bags, monopoly characters. They're basically your pension, your parents' pension, your insurance, your family's insurance, and that's where the money goes. And they put it in the hands of brilliant fund managers like Russell, who have done a tremendous job. And I can tell you, having been Lieutenant Governor of Alaska and having been part of sending out those major dividends from the Alaska Permanent Fund, we appreciate what he did. Dr. Reed has also been a resource for regulatory agencies internationally, state governments, the U.S. Congress, and the U.S. Senate for over 2 decades. He served as chairman of the Investors Committee of the President's Working Group on Financial Markets under Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson. There's nothing going on in finance around that time, Russell. He was named as one of America's 30 most influential players in business and finance by Smart Money, and 35 on the institutional investors list of the 75 most effective chief executives. He did his undergraduate degree in statistics and his MBA in finance at the University of Chicago, finance and international business at the University of Chicago, and then got his master's in economics and a doctorate in political economy from Stanford University in California. His doctoral work on the politics and policies of national economic growth focused on the particular economic roles of natural resources in economic development, and he has taught at graduate level at UC Davis, the University of Maine, and Stanford University. Now, I will just say that, as Jessica mentioned, there are a number of banks around the world who have come up with some excuse to redline the Arctic, to say that it's too controversial, that you shouldn't tread there. I think Russell is somebody who has said, nope, this is a place where sustainability comes out, and you've got to help people, and we'll help the world grow. You can help the Arctic grow. Leading this dialogue with Russell will be Gabe Friedman. Gabe Friedman is a staff writer for the Financial Post, and he has his master's in journalism from Columbia University, where he was a Knight Bagehot Fellow, a very prestigious fellowship. And Gabe writes frequently about Canadian resources. So I'm going to ask the two gentlemen to come forward and ask you to give them your ears, and I want to thank them both wholeheartedly for being here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen.